Welcome to UnSUCKcessful. We're your hosts, Jen.
And I'm Brandi, and this is the podcast where we admit out loud
that we suck.
So if life has ever felt like a dumpster fire,
you're in the right place.
Well, let's get into it.
This week on UnSUCKcessful, we're joined by Brandi's longtime friend and beauty industry soul sister, Shonna Dexter, for a deep, honest, and empowering conversation about what happens when success on the outside doesn't match how you feel on the inside. Shonna shares her journey through midlife anxiety, perimenopause, and the huge decision to walk away from alcohol after realizing it was no longer serving her body, mind, or life. We're diving into sobriety, emotional wellness, hormonal shifts, identity, and what it means to redefine success in your 40s. Not for anyone else, but for yourself. And if you love what you're hearing, please like, subscribe, and screenshot your favorite moment, then tag us on Instagram at UnSUCKcessful Podcast. We love to see what resonates with you. Let's get into it.
This midlife shit, there's a reason it is the highest, rate of suicide among women comes in this midlife range.
That's so funny you bring that up, because I just said that to my trainer this morning. This is the topic of conversation when I'm working out all the time. Because I literally just heard that stat because I was watching the Armchair Expert podcast with Dr. Mary Claire Haver. Because you and I were texting about her. Mm-hmm. And she said that stat, I think it's from the age of 45 to 55.
Yep.
Is when women are most likely to commit suicide or die by suicide. That's how you're supposed to say it now. I don't know if you guys knew that.
Did not know that. Was not aware there is a politically correct way of saying.
Yeah,
no
kidding.
That's I taught you today.
Die by suicide. Okay.
Die by suicide. Die by
the suicide.
Don't commit. You died by. Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
good to know, because I'm not even going to go there. My thought process is going. I'm not
probably so is mine.
Today we do not need to go there. Okay, but anyway, yes. I met Shonna quite a few years ago at the organization that she started, the ASTP, which is the Association of Sunless Tanning Professionals. Mm-hmm. I think probably back in 2018, I think when I met you. I know prior to that, Chanel, my business partner, had met you before that, had gone to your very first year, I believe, or second year. And then I know that I attended the events after that, and that's how we've gotten to know each other. Obviously, we've also that was the beginning, but then we've worked together since then in all kinds of different capacities, right?
A lot.
Lots of different ones. So with our marketing agency and our coaching and consulting agency on that side of things, and then just, being in the industry. So, yeah. So,
yes.
And really why I wanted to have you on today was because you responded to one of my Instagram stories, where now I'm being a little bit more public and sharing a little bit about my struggles over the last couple of years. And I shared a picture of my breakfast.
Breakfast post,
which I never do. I never post about food. I'm so weird like that. I don't know. And I was like, here's my perimenopause, post wean off, anti-anxiety, depression, high protein breakfast. And I just I don't know. I just never feel like something about that with me and food and sharing that and feeling like this influencer in that space. But anyway.
I post my food all the time.
I know, and Jen posts her food all the time.
My chicken, broccoli, and Daniel's dip.
But this is the thing, is I think it's a Jen thing. It's not a Brandi thing. Anyway, but you and I had this conversation in my DMs about this midlife. And so I want to stop talking now, and I want you to share a little bit about you and just set the tone, obviously, and take it away, Shonna. Tell us a little bit about you and why you're here.
Great. Okay. So we did meet in, I believe, 2018, 2019 at Sunless Summit, which was an event that I hosted for an organization that I started, which was Association of Sunless Tanning Professionals. I have been in the spray tanning industry since 2011. Started it as a side gig in the basement of my home as a way to help pay for college for my kids, and grew it into now, 2 brick and mortar locations, 25 employees. And it was never supposed to be this. It was supposed to be a side gig. And, but I've been very lucky. There's been a lot of hard work involved as well. But to grow it in a way that has really benefited me long term. It did not benefit me the way I grew it short term. And the way I had also ASTP, I had 2 growing businesses simultaneously. I literally worked myself into the ground, burnt my nervous system to the ground. And, at the time had no idea what was happening, but looking back, I can say I now know exactly what happened. But I was trying to outwork all of my head stuff, all of the things that were eating me up inside, that I had never dealt with. I was just trying to work and numb those out. I also had an affinity for wine, to numb those things. And especially, again, looking back, hindsight is 2020. I can look back and say that being in a tanning room with strangers all day, every day, and absorbing their energy all day, every day, really affected me. I have a highly sensitive nervous system. I'm an empath, and I didn't know how to protect myself and protect my energy from those things. So I started drinking a lot, and thankfully I had a come to Jesus moment at that big national event in Las Vegas in 2019, where I literally could not function for 24 hours. I call it a nervous breakdown. I don't know what it was, but I was on my bathroom floor of my hotel room, literally couldn't move. And that was the moment where it was like, okay, something is not right, and you really need to examine your life and how you are living. So it took me a full year to kind of work through and admit to myself really what was probably contributing to that. And the alcohol was probably playing a large part in that for me. I quit drinking on January 1st, 2020, and the rest is history. It is the best thing that has ever happened to me. But that one decision is what has led to the last 5 years of becoming this completely different person, to be honest. Like I always say, I do not want anyone to judge me by who I was pre-2020, because I'm not very proud of that person. But over the last 5 years, I've taken every step and been very intentional to, right some wrongs, and also become extremely self-aware. Tons of therapy, tons of different kinds of therapy that I've explored, and really kind of learned the intricacies of Shonna and how I operate and what I need to do to be my best self. So I'm now I'm a certified life coach. I hate that title because it is just yuck. But I am, and a business mentor. So I really consider myself more of a mentor. Really, the way I operate is by sharing my story and my experiences, and then being sort of a mirror for people. It's very easy, outside looking in, to be able to tell people that, kind of what their blind spots are, both personally and in business, if they're open to hearing such things. So that's my role now. I still am the CEO of Recreating Raise, and I love that, but I did get rid of that national association. I sold it in 2020, and that was a great decision for me. So I get to spend my time now focused on growing my brick and mortars, growing my service-based business, establishing it in the way I want to establish it in the Kansas City community, and then online with all sorts of women and helping them navigate all of these things that I've halfway successfully navigated.
Well, and then not only that, but like, and again, like working on yourself in that, and just doing things for yourself with intention, like you said, right? And I have a unique kind of perspective because I was there watching. When I say there, I wasn't there. I was watching on social media because what I will appreciate is how honest and authentic and articulate that you are in sharing all of it, you know, even when you were in the depths of and getting through it. So, and that was one thing I remember, especially when we talk about, you know, that decision for you to no longer keep ASTP, and me being in this industry at that time too, still in the industry, but seeing the reaction of people. Like it felt so heavy, so emotional. People were losing it. Like, you can't just do that. You can't just quit on me, Shonna. And that's really hard because like I was seeing this. I mean, there's hundreds and, you know, comments and, you know, why are you doing this? And, you know, you built such a great thing and you're leaving me on the sidelines and right. Like, I think it was like a lot of that vibe. Like I remember it and being like, okay, people, calm down. Like, it's going to be okay. Shonna needs to take care of herself. Right.
Right.
Yeah. And you were
it was, and it was hard for me to navigate that because I am a people pleaser. Oh, that's all right.
Okay. Shouldn't it? Yeah. That's so weird. That's never happened before. Oh, anyway, somebody's turning in a recording. Are we doing a new one?
Are we good?
Is it a brand new one? It'll be fine.
It's just because Mercury retrograde is just ending, so
yes, exactly. We're still easing out of it.
It's the aftermath of retrograde.
So. Anyway, where were we? What were we talking about? Oh, yeah.
So I was just, it was very difficult for me as a people pleaser. You know, I felt like I was letting everyone down. And that was a very emotional decision for me. But I also knew, like, I had been sober for around 7 months when I made that final decision to let it go. Oh, and we were like coming through COVID. It was like the world was turned upside down. Simultaneously, I'm trying to quit drinking, and
everyone else has started drinking.
Exactly. A lot. I'm on the sidelines watching everybody, you know, doing their Zoom calls with their friends and getting shit-faced. And I'm over here just trying not to have a drink. But also making like big major life changes and decisions. But when you know, and I knew. And I just had to let myself feel those feelings that I had never felt before, that I had used alcohol and working and food, frankly, to numb all that stuff inside me for the longest time. It's hard to disappoint people. And, you know, I had created so many amazing relationships through that organization and through that event. So it was really hard for me to feel like I was letting people down. But at the same time, I really believed that the person that I was selling it to would take it and make it even bigger and better. That's not what happened. And I had to accept also that this thing that I created might disintegrate without me. And that is ultimately what happened. And that's very hard to process as well. Like, you have to be okay. If she takes it and makes it everything I want it to be, I got to be okay with that. And if it falls apart someday, I got to be okay with that too. And so that's a hard decision to make, but it was the best decision.
Yeah. So I think it's interesting because for me, it's always interesting for us to look back, and right now, of course, with a different lens, it was 5 years ago plus. And then, and you're like, you say you just knew you had to do that, you know, and it's like, but how did you know? How did you know that was the right decision?
A lot of crying. There was a
Yeah.
lot of crying involved.
I like that.
Because I really feel like through the first half, really, from March through July of 2020, so from the day we were shut down to summer, I learned how to feel my feelings, and I learned how to freaking cry. I couldn't have told you the last time I cried prior to 2020. And I've now learned that like that's how my body processes. That's one of two ways that my body processes. But um but I had nothing to do but sit around and think, right? And so I thought a lot, and I journaled, and I did all the things that they tell you to do to like process your thoughts. Um and honestly, I had a husband who was sitting on the sidelines watching all this happen to me over the 3 years prior, being like, you can't keep doing this. You're going to kill yourself. Literally. I mean, mentally, I was in a really, really horrible place. And so I just cried a lot and really had to get to a place where I felt like no matter what happens, recreating race is my priority. It is what pays my bills. And ASTP is my little love child over here that I've nurtured into something kind of unique in our industry. But I had to pick one or the other. And that was no contest for me.
Yeah.
So, can you what is raise?
Recreating race.
Recreating race.
Yeah.
That's my spray tanning business.
Okay.
That's her spray tan business.
Yeah.
For all the listeners who, because we didn't say that yet.
Yeah, recreating race. My bad.
I saw it on your Instagram, so
there you go.
Good. So that is the brick and mortar. So you're choosing between the foundation.
The online, it's like ASTP was like an online
yeah.
business, but it was an event-based business
Okay.
and membership-based business, and where once a year and training, and there was, I'm sure there was lots.
It was mostly about the event. It was not supposed to be about the event, but it eventually became about this one annual event that, I'm signing on the dotted line, me personally, for, yes, the business, but the business is me, for, multi 6 figures worth of an event, and just hoping people show up.
Yeah.
And that's a stressful endeavor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Events are very stressful. Like that, those big events like that. I can't even imagine.
I'm not an event planner.
Yeah.
Were those the events? Was that one of those events that you were at in Vegas? Oh,
yes.
So it was the event that you planned in Vegas. And is that this is the one that
I was there.
go to?
Yeah, I was there.
Brandi was there.
To be there when she had her breakdown, but I didn't know she was having a breakdown.
No one knew, right? Yeah. I told everyone that day that I had a migraine, and that I just couldn't be there. Now, thankfully, that was the first year I brought an event planner to help me execute the event. So there was someone to take over. But literally, I was on the bathroom floor of my hotel room, Planet Hollywood, at 4 a.m., like convulsing, sobbing silently because my husband's sleeping in the hotel room. I know he's getting up to go to the airport at 5 a.m. And at 4:55, I'm climbing into the bed, pretending I'm asleep, because I knew if he knew what was happening, he wouldn't leave. And he had to get back to our kids to work, all this stuff, right? And so the minute he walked out that door, it was just a visceral, physical reaction. I now know, it was like a somatic processing. I didn't know then, but every panic attack I'd ever had, because I'd had many of them starting when I was 19 years old, my legs would shake. And that was one of the, and I didn't know why it did that. Well, I know now that that's like how my body was expelling the energy out of me. My nervous system was moving that through the shaking response. I was doing that like full body, probably looked like I was having like a seizure. And it went on for hours. And then, boom, done. Literally cannot move, cannot get out of bed. My body just said, we're done. We're not going to do this anymore. And yeah, no one knew. I didn't tell anyone until a year plus later.
Yeah.
It scared me.
So can I ask what, like, leading up to that, so the day before you're putting on the show, I have $1 million question. You were still drinking at that point in time? And how much were you drunk? Like when this was going on?
No. So
okay, so this wasn't like I was out partying till midnight, came home, and then had a mental breakdown and was like, okay.
No. So at my events, I was always very cognizant of my consumption because I didn't want anybody else to judge my consumption. Looking back now, I can say that, right? At the time, I didn't really recognize that, but I didn't want anybody to see the girl putting this all on as the drunk girl in the corner, right? Or the girl who's maybe had one too many glasses of wine. And so I literally at these events, because it took so much out of me emotionally and connecting with people and energetically, I would, as soon as the days, classes, or whatever were over, I would go to my room, order room service, go to bed. So but all the months leading up to that, right, when I'm at home and I'm struggling with the stress of, are we going to make enough money to pay for this event? Am I going to be out $30,000 after this event? What's going to happen? Are we going to book enough hotel rooms? Blah, blah, blah. I mean, the list goes on and on and on, right? Of all the things that I had to stress over. And so I would have wine as my crutch in those moments, which then led to not sleeping, which led to waking up at 3 a.m. every night. You know, all of these things that I now know were directly affected by my wine consumption, which, by the way, probably was not more than considered normal for most people.
Right. And that's my next question is how much, like, what are we talking? Like, how much was it?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. It started as I was like a party girl, right? I was the girl who went out on the weekends and had a good time. What is the point of drinking if you're not going to get drunk? Like, I never understood that.
I understand that. Yeah, like I mean, I feel that I will not. Yeah, it's like, what's the point of consuming alcohol if we're not getting shit faced and having a great time?
Yes, like as a friend told another friend, my best friend is very much a take it or leave it drinker, right? She has one drink, she gets a little buzz, and she's like, I'm done, and that's my cue to like go full steam ahead, right? Like, so I was that person for most of my life. I started drinking in high school, and now again, looking back, I can say I had social anxiety. I just wanted to fit in, you know, and so alcohol let me talk to people. I was so shy. I'm an only child. I'm an introvert. So it's like all these things. Alcohol gave me confidence. It let me go be in groups of people and not feel like I'm just standing there frozen. And so, but as I became a full-time stepmom, as I started a business, as I did all these things, the daily consumption started to ramp up. And I'm talking a couple glasses of wine at night. I'm not talking like multiple bottles or anything like that. I'm talking a glass of wine while you're fixing dinner or a glass of wine with dinner. But then as I got older, right? I'm 48 now. So when all of this like starts to become a problem for me is my early 40s. And that became waking up every single night at 3 a.m., not being able to go back to sleep. So now I'm dealing with sleep deprivation on top of drinking, and my body just never metabolizing that alcohol. But I looked at everybody around me and they were all doing the same thing, you know? And so you think that you're like the only person on the planet that this is happening to. Like, what's wrong with me? It's something with me. I can't, you know, survive this like mommy alcohol culture. Like, this is what you're supposed to do to connect with your friends. And this is how we commiserate. And this is how we deal with our children and our husbands and our lives, is we drink wine and we talk about it. Right. And what I realize now is like a lot of people have this issue. They just don't know, like I didn't. They don't know that they're waking up at between 3 and 3:30 every night because their body has come down from that alcohol consumption. And all of the scientific things that are happening in their brain and their body when that's happening. I read this book called Menopause Brain.
Yeah. Yeah.
My first clue, I was in perimenopause. My brain.
The brain.
What the hell is the name of the book? Anyway, it's by Annie Grace, and if you Google Annie Grace, you'll find.
See, you know her name. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I can pick that out from the depths of my soul, but I can't tell you the name of the book.
You'll remember as
Anyway.
we're done. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect.
I'll remember in 6 minutes. I'll like randomly pull it out of my
Yeah,
ass.
we'll be talking about something else.
But This Naked Mind. That's what it's called.
This Naked Mind
by Annie Grace.
So yes, it is all about the science of what happens to your brain and your body when you're consuming alcohol. And you know, at the end of the day, alcohol is an addictive substance. If we were like getting together for book club and all doing lines of cocaine, everyone would look at us like we have 3 heads. But instead, we're doing wine, which is just as addictive, but socially acceptable.
Yeah.
So, and quite frankly, probably has just as many health consequences.
Yeah. I think it's important to note too that I grew up also like 14, sneaking a kokanee out of the fridge, running around the small town. You know, we all that's what we did growing up.
Right.
I had freedom, which was really great because I think my parents, I don't know if intentionally or unintentionally, allowed me to drink and have that life experience under their roof instead of when I got to college, then going like crazy. That being said, yes,
I went crazy.
I still had a blast. Yeah. But it was just like, by the time I got to college, I knew how to like manage my liquor. I knew it was too much. Like I never ended up in the hospital. I was never getting my stomach pumped or whatever else. Right. Doesn't mean that I wasn't hungover, still drunk come 10 o'clock the next morning. But, yeah, I totally get it. I think the important thing to note is that you said a lot of people have this problem, but the other thing is that a lot of people don't. And like, I think, you know, it's part of the life algorithm. It's part of the people that you're around is that this is what we do. This is what we see. And so, although I used to drink quite a bit, I definitely, you know, when I was pregnant, obviously didn't drink. And then when I had the babies, and then it was just too much to try and deal with the babies in the morning being hungover. And so my drinking has definitely tapered off. And I might have a drink every few weeks or every few months even, right?
Right.
And there's a lot of people that just don't drink anymore. Like even our generations coming, like Gen Z, they aren't drinking. They just aren't. They don't drink anymore.
They're smoking weed.
Yeah, exactly.
I was going to say,
they're doing something else.
I'm like,
they are
smoking weed, I think.
But they're not drinking, which is
right. And I will say 5 years ago when I quit, it was like, you know, oh, look at Shonna. She has a problem. She's an alcoholic, blah, blah, blah. I would never consider myself an alcoholic. I would consider myself a gray area drinker. I would say that, you know, a label doesn't serve me. There are some people who it does serve, but if you had told me that the only way I could get sober and quit drinking was to walk into a room at AA and say, hi, my name is Shonna and I'm an alcoholic, it never would have happened.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm grateful for resources like Annie Grace and her book. And she has a online program. And because it just made me take a step back and realize that people who don't have a problem with alcohol never think about alcohol. They never think about, oh, can I do a 30-day, I did dry January every year to prove to myself that I could go 30 days without drinking alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
Someone who doesn't necessarily have any sort of issue, they just don't think about it. Mm-hmm. So like they don't have a need to do dry January every year because they're probably doing dry February and March, but they might have one drink somewhere in there, And that was really what opened my mind and my eyes, was talking and really looking at my best friend and saying, wow, like when we go out to dinner, I'm having 2 or 3 glasses of wine in the same span she's having 1, right? And I was always kind of the instigator, like hey, have another one. Mm-hmm. So I don't feel bad about myself, right? And when you
that's
look
remarkable.
back and when you realize that, yes, my social circle definitely made me feel like my consumption was normal. And I think living in middle America, where really it is the form of socializing, like there's no hiking, there's no like oceans or anything to do, right? We're just like hanging out, drinking in someone's driveway with your neighbors. So
yeah. And what are you doing if you're not? Right? Like that's like like you go to someone's house, like what do? You go for dinner with someone. What do you do? What do you do now?
What do I do now?
Yeah.
I'm like an old lady and I love every second of it. So literally dinner out with friends is happening 5:30, 6 p.m. for me. And I'm usually home and in bed and reading by 9. And I'm okay with that because true connection can happen across a dinner table in a matter of an hour and a half or 2 hours. Going out and drinking with your buddies for 6 hours is not creating any sort of true connection with people. And so I fill my cup in short little bursts with people now, which actually for my like personality type just works way better for me. And I get to still maintain my routine, which is so important to me, especially now, like managing hormones and all this stuff. My routine is everything to me. And so I can still manage that and be social, but it is hard. It's difficult to make new friends.
Or hang out with old ones even.
Well, I had to pretty much let them all go.
Mm-hmm.
And that's hard. And I was scared to death. This is me and my husband. We're both participating in this social lifestyle. So what's going to happen to our marriage when I make this decision for me? There's a million different things going through my head when I made this decision. But I just knew after my Reiki session on January 2nd, 2020, my first Reiki session ever, I knew that giving up alcohol was what needed to happen for me. And that was that. And I haven't had a drink since.
I love it. There.
And just wrote down Reiki
session
with nice big bubble around it.
I am all about all the healing modalities.
Yeah, actually, I'm hoping we'll have another guest who is a Reiki master. She's a medium. She's a great friend of mine too in future episodes. But I want to just like also acknowledge, like when you said that people who don't have a problem don't think about it all the time. So there's a lot when it comes to hormones. There's a lot that comes to perimenopause, and I'm like a crunchy, healthy, entrepreneur mom, like throw all the labels at me. It's fine. But yet I'll be the first one to pop a handful of Advil if like my neck's too sore from doing a really, tough workout. Right.
Right.
So I'm like, kind of hypocritical, kind of not. But I think one of the big things too is that like food, what you're talking about, like food is a massive thing. And in my algorithm, because I have the health and the fitness and that kind of thing, is that, and this started with Brandi taking a picture of her food, is that I think about food all the time.
Right.
And so if it's not one thing, we say that they're not drinking anymore, they're smoking weed, right? Kids aren't. Well,
Right.
Look at us. We're not drinking. You said it yourself. Then you're eating, so there's all of these habits.
Our phones are a new
Sorry, I was like,
of,
do you have to go?
Yeah, sorry, that's my phone.
It's hard stuff.
That's what a lot of people are using as a numbing agent now.
Exactly. And so food again, and then you go into this like perimenopausal spiral on Instagram of like, what the hell am I supposed to eat? And I've worked with some amazing human beings that are like holistic nutritionists over the years and just have like dove into different areas of eating. But that in itself can be completely exhausting too. Yeah. And so It's like, you're absolutely right. Is there a problem? It can be on so many different levels. It's just, is it socially acceptable, and what damage are you doing to yourself by doing it?
And everybody is different, and everybody is unique. And, what affects me food-wise now may not affect the next person down the street. I'm all about high protein, solidarity, Brandi, like we got to eat that protein, right? But the next person down the street may feel better on a vegan diet with less protein. And it's all about like finding what works for you, because everybody is very individual, and what works with our life and our lifestyles will be different. That's why I always say I'm a mentor, because like I really believe that what works for me doesn't necessarily work for everyone else, and that not everybody needs to quit drinking. I needed to quit drinking, but that is not a fix or something that needs to happen for every single person on the planet to be healthy.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to bring something up. So when we were chatting in our DMs a little bit, you had alluded to kind of your mental breakdown and life changes and everything, to the possibility of the hormone fluctuations going on at that time. And I actually, before coming on here, I did a quick little chat GPT question, and I said, hey, is it, can we go into perimenopause earlier if we are under a lot of, stress? And of course, the answer is basically yes.
Yes.
And it's really funny, Shonna, because I had this bit of an aha today. And I've gone to a couple of medical appointments lately. And of course, they're women that are in the medical system, but they're not entrepreneurs. They're not business owners. And they have they have their own stresses in there. I'm there's no judgment or anything, but it was interesting because both of these ladies, we were talking about menopause and perimenopause and symptoms, and both of them were in their early 50s, and neither of them have experienced any symptoms. And there I am, just an absolute mess, and I'm 10 years younger than them. And so it's interesting to me, like, I do think, as entrepreneurs, as business people, we do tend to carry on. I'm not going to, compare. I don't want to. Obviously, I just extrapolated this from seeing and meeting with two people and just thinking, I wonder if us women, entrepreneurs that went through COVID and literally had to fight for our lives, and just, the timing of it. So I'd like you to kind of talk about that, because like the timing of how old you were, and then obviously the stress, and then the alcohol, and then the breaking point, and your hindsight now. If you can talk about that.
Well, so for me, it's kind of a unique situation in that I had a partial hysterectomy when I was 28 years old.
Oh.
So I still had my ovaries, but I haven't had a period in 20 years.
Yeah.
And so when everything realistically started for me, who knows? right? Like I don't have that monthly gauge to tell me if I'm still ovulating, what kind of hormone levels I'm producing. I just know if my boobs hurt or not. Like
Yeah.
that's how I would know. Um, and looking back now, my best guess is that really in that 2019 range is probably when this began subtly for me. My anxiety started to ramp up. It's something that I'd struggled with, that I had gotten under control all through my 20s and 30s. I pretty much had my anxiety under control thanks to like my mom being adamant about me seeing a therapist, learning biofeedback things, modalities to deal with my anxiety early on. And so, but all of a sudden, all the things that I've always done to help curb my anxiety were not working. Now, how much of that is hormone fluctuations and how much of that is stress and how much of that is alcohol and how much of that is a million different things, right? But what I noticed was when I removed the alcohol, I felt better, but I did not feel as good as a lot of the people around me who had also quit drinking around the same time. They're like talking about all this like clarity and all of this stuff. And I'm like, no, like my brain fog is horrid. My afternoons, like after 1 o'clock, after I ate lunch, I was completely worthless every day. I had zero energy, all of these sorts of things that now looking back, I know can be, perimenopausal symptoms. But I was feeling better than I had, like so much better than I had for the past few years, that it just felt like, hey, this is as good as it gets, right? And then as you go over more and more and more months and years, and you start to realize like, okay, wait, like, and I am lucky in that I landed with a nurse practitioner at my doctor's office. And this was, she was traditional medicine at this point. And she left the doctor's office and went and became a
functional health.
Thank you.
That area. Yeah, I don't really know what all the different terms are called, but
functional med NP.
Okay.
She left traditional medicine. She went to an office that is actually Gillette Health, which is local here, and Kyle Gillette is the owner, and he's actually a hormone specialist. He's been on Huberman Lab. He is a hormone specialist, and I'm lucky that he lives in the same city as me, and that, a nurse practitioner who works with him is who treats me. But when she left, I started kind of approaching a more functional, approach for my health. And I was very I don't want to say I'm anti-medication, because especially anxiety, depression, I think there's a time and a place for everything. But I started to see a lot of my friends who were maybe a few years older than me starting to be put on anti-anxiety and antidepressive meds. And I was like, wait, what are your symptoms? What's happening? And so I had one friend in particular, she was 50, and she started driving herself to the hospital almost every day because she thought she was dying. Well, she was having panic attacks, and she'd never had that in her life, right? And me, outside looking in, have had a million panic attacks in my life. So I'm like, oh, you're having panic attacks, right? But when you're going through that, you can't convince someone of that. They have to figure that out for themselves. And so they're like, yeah, you're having panic attacks. Go see your doctor and get a medication. She's 50 years old. And no one ever said, let's check your hormones.
Yeah.
No one ever said that to her.
Yeah.
And she spent months miserable. Started, almost getting to the place where she didn't want to leave her house because she was afraid she was going to have a panic attack. And she's on anti-anxiety meds and she's not feeling better. And finally, she found Mary Claire Haver on Instagram, and she's like, Shonna, you got to start following this woman. Like, I think this is what's happening to me. I think I'm going through menopause, and no one has even mentioned to me that this could be a possibility. And so she found, here's the thing, in the US, like, you got to pay for all this out of your pocket. You can have your health insurance is not going to touch this. So you have to go find your own doctor. You have to go do your own research. And then you've got to find somebody who's willing to prescribe these to you. And there's still such a stigma around HRT with people thinking that it's going to give you breast cancer. And that has been completely debunked.
Yeah, that's going to give you breast cancer, but what are all the chemical meds that the doctor's going to prescribe you do to you, for fuck's sakes? Like, come on. And how about that, like, hot dog and processed food you eat all the time? What about that? Yeah. And
your quality of life. You know, at the end of the day, literally 2 months ago, I thought I was going insane. And if I hadn't known what I know now and researched for myself and educated myself and had a functional med NP that I'm working with, who's like, yeah, your estrogen has completely tanked, I would have had my husband have me committed to a mental hospital, because that show Snapped, where women lose their minds and they like murder people. I get it.
I get it.
I get it.
I know. I get it now. I get it.
And I have never experienced anything like that in my life. I'm an anxious girly. I'm not an angry girly. And the anger and rage I felt, and it came on like that overnight. Overnight, I became this different version of myself. And thankfully, because I was getting my hormones tested, I started getting my hormones tested last July. And so the first time I had them tested in July, my estrogen level was 80, which is perimenopause. By January, it was 12.
Wow.
And that's full on menopause. And I had started having the hot flashes, the rage, these weird, like, came out of nowhere symptoms.
Yeah, I just actually, Jen, I don't know did I tell you? Yeah, I did tell you. Yeah. I just on Friday had my blood work done through a functional health clinic. So in Canada, yeah, we have the free healthcare, but this is extra. This is And last year, when I went to my doctor and was put on anti-anxiety and depressants, and she did do blood work. Of course, you know, everything came back normal, within normal range, right? Normal. We have access to this new system, which is great, online, and we can kind of look at it all. And so I actually just got my blood work done, and they obviously added quite a few more things, the things that I wanted my own doctor to test for last year. But now the functional health is able to do that. But even then, there's some things that they can't test for, which is interesting. And I can't wait for my follow-up appointment in a couple of weeks to talk to them about that, because I got an email about a few things and I'm like confused. But anyway, we'll figure it out. Having said that, it was interesting because, yeah, like there's a couple of the markers that really haven't changed from last year and the hormones. However, when I take my and again, I have not had this meeting in 2 weeks, but I took all of my information. I'm a ChatGPT lover.
Yes.
And I don't freaking care. Like, I'm putting my information in ChatGPT. I do not care.
Me too.
Like, really, like, who cares? Like, you can know my estrogen levels.
Yeah.
But
and then they can use it for science.
I don't care. Yeah. Like, I don't care. Anyway, they can use it to help the people. I want to help the
masses.
The masses. Yeah. Anywho. And, it was interesting kind of what ChatGPT came back at. Obviously, it's so complex. I can't, explain it. However, what I did notice is my estrogen levels are it was like just over 100.
Yeah.
So what cycle day was that? What cycle day?
That was 28.
And see that.
The very last day.
That's what matters.
Estrogen should be low, but not that low, I think. I don't know.
Okay. And everything I've been told, you never want to test your hormones on that day. You need to do it between 16 and 20. And that's one of the things that most people get wrong, is because literally on day 28, they're flipped. Like, I've been through this so many different times.
And I want to do this. This is another question I have, right?
So now they're going to be showing wrong. So it's high and
Well, and that's for me. I have no idea.
because it's doing.
I have no idea where I'm at in my cycle.
Right. I was going to
because
ask you that.
I had a hysterectomy.
So how did you know?
So, but really, so what we've judged it on is my my symptoms.
Yeah.
Right. So when I first go and I get tested, the only thing that was really off the charts low was my testosterone, which most women don't know that they have more testosterone than any other sex hormone. And that can contribute to brain fog, lethargy, which I was just super lethargic, and really felt the big thing that kind of keyed me off that there was something wrong last year was I just started feeling really overwhelmed all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't make a decision to save my life. Like, it was just like, you could give me a few little inputs and it would just completely off the charts. Like, I can't process what you're telling me. I am completely overwhelmed. So kind of a different form of anxiety, but felt a little different from what I'm used to with my anxiety, right? And so I went and we tested and my testosterone was low. I started injecting testosterone last July. And within a few weeks, started feeling so much better. Like, just as far as the energy levels, libido, let's talk about it. Like, sex, like, I actually wanted to have sex again. Wow. Hey, thanks. Perfect.
Yeah.
Great. But it was like, that was the first thing that for me, she was like, everything else looks normal. Now, the other thing I've learned, there's a difference between normal and optimal, right? And so that's why you hear people talk a lot about optimizing hormones, because yes, our hormones are supposed to fall off a cliff this time of year or this time of life, and that's normal, but it's probably not optimal for most of us, for quality of life reasons. And my quality of life sucked. And then by November, I was having hot flashes. And that's how we knew that, like, my estrogen had just literally, when I went to see her in January, she's like, I walk in the door and she said, I bet you're having hot flashes. I was like, multiple times a day.
Yeah.
You know, and that's kind of the only thing that people think about with, like, hormones and menopause and perimenopause, because that's the only thing everybody ever talks about is hot flashes, right? I had frozen shoulder last year. That was one of my first symptoms. Nobody knew that was a symptom.
Yeah, well,
right?
now what is it? Dr. Vonda Wright, I think her name is, or Vonda Wright.
Yeah, Vonda.
I've been watching her on absolutely everything. Yeah. She's the bone lady, but she's, huge into the perimenopause, and she was the one that did that study on the frozen shoulder, and so that's amazing that now that's coming out. Okay. What I think is so interesting about hormones is the puzzle, right?
Yeah.
Is that
everything's so interconnected.
It's a puzzle, and everything can, like, show normal. This is what was interesting, what I kind of took from the whole ChatGPT thing that spit back at me. What I took from it was like, okay, yeah, it's like, this is the normal range and all these individual things if you look at them individually. But when you put them together, it creates a story. And
it's called holistic approach.
Holistic approach. And
when you put together everything.
When you put it together,
I think it's important.
Yeah. I was going to say something else, but I forget now. But you were going to say something. So okay.
Okay. Holistic. So we go. This is I'm a big believer in holistic health, because I believe that your thoughts, your feelings, your energies, they will manifest as disease in your body. So I guess, like, for me, I also, again, talking about the algorithm of life, when we start to go down this perimenopause rabbit hole, maybe we're closing off all of the other options. And those do come down to holistic doctors, Chinese medicine, and that kind of thing. Even with the tests, for example, like your DHEA, it can only be tested as DHEAS. There's no system to test DHEA in your system. So you may have really great DHEA, but if you aren't eating your broccolis and your cabbages and that kind of thing, it just has no way to test it. So that was interesting too. right? But again, as a holistic approach to it, what's your mind, your body, and your soul? And to me, the very first thing that should happen if any of these symptoms come up is, what is your diet? Which, Shonna, you did. You looked at what you were drinking, which is huge, like massively, right? With drinking wine. I will have a glass of red wine and I will have hot flashes all night long and sleep like shit. But if we're not looking at that diet number one before we do all this stuff, then
For sure.
I don't.
But I also
think that's what's broken.
I do, and I agree. But I also think that it's depending on kind of what motivates you as a person, right? So, like, I can tell for you, Shonna, like, knowledge is the power that motivates you. Like, and I'm the same way.
Right.
I'm the exact same way. I'm like motivated by data and numbers. For me anyway, like, I'm not saying like you and I are the same there, but what I'm saying is like the knowledge and the understanding to then, okay, you know, feeling in control with it and having the motivation to change it, and then kind of going down that rabbit hole, and then having to be able to see, okay, I made one small change and this is the result that I'm making, right? Because I do think it's, especially where we are, it's overwhelming when I say where we are as a society and the environment that we're in, is that now we're having to like rewrite it. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's overwhelming because we're told to do one thing and that's just completely fucking wrong. We're taught to go to our medical doctor, and that is so wrong. And so if you find someone who will look at it from a holistic approach, so I went for, again, I was having panic attacks, big stuff going on in the company, and with my dad dying and dealing with the grief and all that kind of shit, it was like, it was too much. And I went to my Chinese medicine doctor, and we do some episodes about this. And she actually said, Jen, I don't think you're going to want to go on any antidepressants. I thought I had to. Like, I was so low. I was terrified.
Right.
And so I'd already been working with her for some time. She knew me. She knew that, you know, I wouldn't really like that. But what we did is we dialed in my lifestyle a little bit more. I mean, we'd already been working on this. Some really great supplements that helped. And for some people, the supplements are going to help. But for some people, well, I do believe they will with the right diet and with exercise. I exercise a lot. I'm a very, very active person. You know, like you said, move that energy through your body. I'm always thinking of that when even if I'm walking, I'm just like Reiki, you know, like moving that energy through your chakras and thinking about it and flowing. But the majority of people don't know that. And so to take some supplements and change your diet, that takes time, and you're not going to look for any like quick changes. And I think that as a society, one part that's broken is that we have such a low tolerance for discomfort that we don't have the capacity to watch it improve over a long period of time, which will give you the better results, right? And yes, I know that we say that at this age, like, we're going to be transitioning like through menopause and perimenopause. But Dr. Courtney Hunt, MD, I love her. She talks about like quantum physics all the time. She's very much about the science inside the body. Do you know who I'm talking about?
I don't know her, but I am big into quantum physics right now. So.
Exactly. So she is actually not, she's 58 and she is still cycling. And she doesn't have symptoms. And so because she like believes in fasting, not all the time, not intermittent fasting, but cleaning the cells out of her body. And she is a doctor. She was like a resident at UCLA and all this, like head of whatever the stuff. So she understands that, and she's dove into that. And I just wonder, like, okay, we are saying this is normal, but is it even normal to start perimenopause at this age? Or is this just showing us how we as a society and we as human beings are actually like coming to death sooner because our body's shutting down? Youth, cycling is a symbol of longevity, right? Of our youth. So if it's stopping now and it shouldn't, what are we doing to our bodies as a society that is causing this to happen so young?
Yeah, and I think that's definitely playing a part here, right? And I think everybody wants the quick fix. Everybody wants the thing, you know. I just started really doing resistance training and lifting weights this year.
Awesome. Good
I
thing.
am not going to have my bikini body by the time I go to the beach in August. Okay. It is not going to happen. Last year, I lost like 10 pounds. I became a walking fiend last year. Mentally, that is like, for me, that is my savior. Walking, walking, walking. And I walked everything out of me last year. And you know what happened? My ass fell down the back of my thighs and completely disappeared. What little ass I had is now completely gone. And I go and I get a DEXA scan, and they're like, "Oh, congratulations, you've lost 10 pounds since your last DEXA scan." But like 6 of that is muscle, and 4 pounds of it is fat. So, yay! No, this is like the opposite of what I'm trying to achieve, right? So I had to have a little come to Jesus with myself and be like, okay, are we just gonna like, why don't I do weightlifting? Because it sucks. It's hard. I don't like it. Truthfully, I fucking hate it. But
it's fun.
am I willing to do it? I had a grandkid. I became a grandma in September.
You became a grandma. Congratulations. Yeah.
I became a grandma.
I'm getting
in
fired
September.
up. I'm sweating. Yeah.
And, you know, like what I already fucked up with the kids. Like I already set not the best example when they were growing up. So what kind of grandparent do I want to be? Mm-hmm. Do I want to be the grandma who's out here running around and has the energy to like take her places and take her on hikes and, you know, but frankly, not just for her, but for me and for my husband. And we're empty nesters now, right? We're in the prime of our fucking lives. We have a successful business. We have time, more time than 99% of the human population. Mm-hmm. We own our time. And so I don't have an excuse to not do this. And quite frankly, that's kind of what motivates me every day to get my ass to my basement and lift some heavy shit, is the fact that that's a privilege I have that a lot of people don't have.
Yeah.
And if I'm not going to take advantage of that privilege, just like going and seeing my functional med doctor, that is a privilege I have that a lot of people don't have. And that's what fires me up is, you know, I pay out the ass for this stuff. Mm-hmm. I'm glad you told me I can cuss because I'm laying it on. But I pay out the ass for this stuff. And it is not something that everyone can do. That pisses me off. You know, how many women are out there just suffering?
That's not something that everyone can do. But I think the
knowledge.
I think the thing is that everyone can. It just doesn't look like the way you're doing it. And that looks like, that comes back to the easy things. Like maybe you can't pay for what you're paying for. And yes, the tests with the naturopath and the Chinese medicine lady, Dr. Krista, she's lovely. And
it sounds like a TV show.
Yeah, exactly. And she, yes, it's expensive, but the test, it's kind of like you can do them and then you can do them again later. But here's the thing, and this is the $1 million energetic question statement is that you're going to spend the money anyway. So we're here spending it on this before, you know, are people out spending it on booze? Are people out spending it on what? Like the random stuff that you don't even realize that you're spending it on. It's the priority. So if you're buying junk food, because your food that you eat makes the biggest difference. If I eat chocolate, I will have the same effect as wine if I eat it before bed. If I eat a lot of sugar and gummy candies, I will get hot flashes all day and all night. The food, like small things, and that's what we're not being taught is eating clean food. But we're screwed. We're screwed because there's freaking food dye in everything. There's excess sugar, fructose, all these chemicals and shit in everything we eat. And I eat an extremely clean diet. But that, you know, even the mold on the friggin' handful of cashews that I could have an impact on you. So again, it's the wormhole, but you can take steps and you can do these little things if you really choose to. It's all about priorities because we've made it acceptable to be where we are. We've made it acceptable that hot flashes are okay, right? It's part
Right.
of, I'm going through perimenopause. I keep saying many peripause. We're going through perimenopause, and it's okay to feel this way. Oh, just perimenopause, but it's not.
Right.
And that's what I
Right.
don't want to do, is I don't want to do, and here on this platform too, is I don't want to make it seem like it should be okay or normal, and that people can't, that it's just a normal fact of life, because it doesn't have to be, I guess.
Right. There's definitely things you can do.
Yeah. And yes,
But we
are
will
blessed.
all go through it eventually.
Yes. Yes.
It
Yeah.
is inevitable that we will face it at some point,
We
right?
will, but how do we face
100%
it?
of women will go
Yeah.
through this.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But, and everybody's symptom load is different.
Different.
And can that be affected by your lifestyle? 100%.
100% is affected by your lifestyle.
Yeah, and
absolutely. I think you can get through it pretty easily, actually, depending on what that lifestyle looks like.
Yes, and I think that that's kind of the interesting thing, and that's where I was kind of getting at in the beginning when we were talking about you making lifestyle changes and
Mhm.
making that decision. Even though it was very difficult and you were letting people down,
Yes.
and that's really resonating with me. And I think that when we say that we're very lucky to be in these positions, it's because of the choices that we've made to be in them. Granted, not everybody has, the will to be entrepreneurs or business owners or whatever, and putting in
100%.
whatever that is. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that the lifestyle is a choice.
Yes.
Right?
For sure.
And making hard decisions.
Yes. And that's the choice I made post-COVID with
Mhm.
Justin, with my husband. He left his corporate job in 2022. We have far less money than we have ever.
What does success mean to you now versus what it used to mean?
For sure. So that is, Justin and I made the decision in 2022 for him to leave his corporate job, and to come and work inside Recreating Rays. And that was a life-changing decision. We have less money than we've ever had, but we decided that we wanted to prioritize our time together, and our health. And so, he left his job. He was miserable, absolutely miserable. I love that. Oh, this dog is killing me. Okay. Anyway, he was absolutely miserable. And, he left his job, and in the first year lost like 75 pounds. And we decided that, prioritizing our health and prioritizing our time was more important to us than prioritizing money.
Yeah.
And so when we kind of left that lifestyle behind, and really initially it was like, oh, we want time freedom so we can travel and do all these things. So we start traveling and doing all these things. And then it's like, well, like I'm at a point now where it's not that I don't love to travel, because I do still love to travel. It's just not the priority for me that it used to be, because I don't feel the need to escape my life.
Yes.
Like, I love my life. I love my daily life. I love my routine. I love every single day waking up, somewhere around 5:30 a.m., which is just what my body likes to do. And just getting to spend my days doing what makes me happy that day. And trust me, as I've gone through this perimenopause transition, I've been very grateful for that decision, because there are days where I don't want to do anything. And I allow myself that, and I give myself that grace. And there are days where I maybe do have to go into my studio and I really don't want to do it, and you just got to suck it up. But that's not every day anymore. And so us making that decision together to say, okay, I don't know how we're going to do this. And that was the honest truth. It was supposed to be like a few months. He was going to leave corporate America for a few months, kind of get his footing, see what happened. And here we are 3 years later, and he never went back. And it's the best decision we've ever made for ourselves, especially health-wise. because now we have the time and the energy to put into taking better care of ourselves. So that is my version of success today. That is, you know, I could care less how much money I have in the bank. And that's probably, I've got enough to pay my bills. And if I've got enough to pay my bills, I feel happy and content with that.
Mm-hmm.
And I get to, have a business that I love, and I get to have as much time as I want with my husband, and we get to take care of ourselves. And that is success for me.
Yeah. Okay. One more question, and then we're going to wrap up.
Okay.
You talked in the DMs with me about vulnerability being a superpower.
Yes.
And can you share how opening up and sharing your truth played a role in your healing and what you mean by that?
I think our, vulnerability leads to connection. And we are meant to connect with people. There are so many people who, maybe die early in retirement or things like this because they don't have a community around them. They don't have a connection to a group of people. And me being open and honest, and, honestly, the first time I shared publicly about, like, okay, it's been 100 days and I haven't had a drink, that was more for me. That was an accountability thing. That was like well, if I put it out there to the world, and then, next week I got a glass of wine and a photo, somebody's probably going to call me out on that. So it initially started as accountability. But what started happening was women who I didn't even know, women who were following me maybe because of my business, and they were following my personal account, started reaching out to me and being like, hey, I think maybe I might want to quit. Or how have you navigated this or that? And so me just opening that door and making it okay to talk about it led to so many connections for me. And then same thing goes with all this, perimenopause, menopause, transition. Nobody's freaking talking about this. It's kind of the new sobriety. Like, I feel like I'm just barely ahead of the game on these things. Like, when I quit drinking in 2020, no one talked about it. It was so taboo. There's such a stigma around it. And then within a couple of years, the conversation started changing around alcohol. And same with like perimenopause and menopause. Like, as I'm starting to talk about it more and more people are coming out of the woodwork and being like, holy shit, like, this time of my life really sucks.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really struggling with this or that. We got aging parents. We've got, I'm
Grandkids.
lucky. I'm lucky that I have adult children, but there are so many people who are navigating still having, preteen and teen children and aging parents and all of these things that come in midlife that can be so isolating, and you feel like you are the caretaker for everyone. And we forget to take care of ourselves, number one. And so when you let yourself get in the gutter, you're never going to be able to take care of anybody else. And so, I think that being open and honest and just sharing the struggle and really honestly sharing the struggle. Like, let's not sugarcoat this shit, right? Let's say it how it is, because everyone's experience is different. There are some women who will navigate through this time easily, and I'm not one of them. I mean, I don't think that my symptoms have been as dramatic as some people I know, because I am taking steps to prevent that.
Yes, exactly.
But I do think, just being honest and like I said, 100% of women will go through this. And I thought until a year ago, the only thing that would happen is I'd get some hot flashes. Like, no, I turned into a psycho for a couple of months, like, wanted to murder some people. And it scared me. But I knew what was happening because other people have been vulnerable and open about it as well. So that leads me to feeling more comfortable being vulnerable and sharing my truth in this journey. and in hopes that, someone else sees it and is like, holy shit, like I didn't even know what was happening.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you, Shonna.
Where,
You guys are all
if people want to reach out to you or something really resonated, where can they find you? Instagram handle, website, anything?
I only
You're like,
have like
don't. Just don't reach out.
18 different Instagram accounts. I feel like, yeah, my personal account is really where I share most of this journey, this personal journey, and that's just Shonna, Shonna, Dex, Dex, and yeah, I'm very open over there. It started kind of with sobriety and getting like a bigger following around that. And then now I'm kind of navigating this and how I want to share this journey because I do think it's important. But yeah, Shonna Dex on Instagram.
Amazing.
Okay.
It is so important. The vulnerability is so key, and that's why we're here on the podcast.
Yes.
Where we suck.
And so do you.
But that's okay.
And we're here to just, help you feel like you suck just a
A little bit less. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Shonna.
That was so good. Next week on Unsuccessful, we're switching it up a bit for Mother's Day and giving the mics to our hubbies. Yep, Brent and Nick are stepping in to share what it's really like being married to two emotional, unpredictable, overthinking entrepreneurs. From parenting and burnout to relationship communication and grief, these guys brought honesty, heart, and even a little humor to the table. It's raw, it's really raw, surprising, and maybe a little chaotic, aka totally on brand. So don't miss it. And as always, this is Unsuccessful, the podcast where life might feel like a total dumpster fire, but hey, at least it's your dumpster fire. See you next week.